Thank you so much for watching and listening, depending on which platform you are, to my show, William Wallace for America. With me today in this interview, this episode of my show, is Jacob Landry, who is running for state representative in an area of Louisiana that I'm going to have to let him explain this. Jacob, thank you so much for being on my show today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, William. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, I say it like that because I got to tell you, I've never been here before.
It's a lost jewel that everybody needs to find.
So where are we exactly? And describe it for the people.
We are sitting in the southern coastal parish, Vermilion Parish. We're roughly close 2 miles as the crow flies from Vermilion Bay. For those that can remember us on TV, we were the catastrophe after Katrina, which was Hurricane Rita, which really devastated our area. But with the resilience of our community, William, I think you saw how well we built back and how well we're still striving down here, but looking for more opportunities.
As I drove through here, you're getting ready for a fair. I'm looking at a vibrant community. Just like you said, it's come back, but that's a huge testimony to the people here in this area.
You know, William, it is, and I use hurricanes because it's in the back of my mind right now, because we are in hurricane season, and a lot of us, our lives were changed by hurricanes in this area. But the one thing, and the reason, one of the biggest cores to my candidacy is the strength and the resilience of the people down here. And when you, as a kid growing up, you knew that you braced for the storm, you got out of harm's way, but you knew you came back because you knew that your neighbor needed you, you needed your neighbor, and everybody came together. And the resilience, we always built back better, you know? So
the actual town that we are in, again, is what now?
It's Erath, Louisiana, and on the census, we're about a population of 2,000.
And how far south of Lafayette are we?
We're roughly 15 miles south of Lafayette.
And then of course, for the people who are watching outside this area, you know, we're west of Jefferson Parish, and we're east of Lake Charles. Yep,
and you know, I like to say we sandwiched between Abbeville and New Iberia with little communities like Delcombe in between. You know, Delcombe and Erath are almost one in itself, but still two different towns, you know, as far as having each their own mayor, but still the same community that works together.
And the reason I think this is so important, we're talking about your state rep race, we're talking about you so people get a chance to know you, but from what I'm seeing, from talking to you and being in this area for the first time, is that this area might be a lot of little bitty small communities, but it really is a bunch of little small communities that work together for a bigger common goal for the people of this area in our state. Would you say that's true?
I'd say that's exactly true. You know, I've been appointed to multiple boards in my life in the last probably 10 years, and I found that the beauty about it is they're all made up of our little communities around us. So I think that with the Port Commission and the Vermilion Economic Development, we've been able to pool that together to be able to help our little community, these little towns throughout the coast, to bring better things here and to give people the notion that we're not forgetting, we're not turning our back, that we still want to see people raise their kids in the school systems here and come back and give back to the communities, both professionally and on a volunteer side.
So is that the same sentiment that you want to bring to Baton Rouge in a state rep seat that you wish to win and represent here in this area?
Yeah, you know, going to Baton Rouge it's not going to be easy, I know that. But going to Baton Rouge for me is actually bringing a business sense, a business mentality that we can't cash checks that we don't have the money in the bank for, right? So we got to know that we know we have our duties, we know we have things that we have to take care of, but we also need to figure out how to keep ourselves within a budget to where we know in the worst of times, like hurricanes, that we could survive.
You know, let's talk a little bit about that, about your business experience that you're going to be taking there, because you're saying some great things, and I want to hear more about your past. on what got you there. You're from this area. You grew up in Erath here, I'm assuming?
44 years with living a tenure for 3 years in Youngsville when Hurricane Rita took me and my wife's first house. Well, my wife inherited the house, but when you have 4 foot of water in your house, it's hard to come back to it, especially with the condition that it was in.
So you're from this area. What business? What's your industry that are you in?
So my industry is oil and gas. At one point, I thought I wanted to be an architect, but being raised in a family where you had oil in your bottle, you somehow get sucked right back into it. But it's been a wonderful career. I've met some of the greatest people, just like where we live, but all over the state, even into our involvement from West Virginia, North Dakota, West Texas, North Louisiana, and South Texas.
It's really unique that I find about the oil and gas industry is that you get a huge diversity of people. In the oil and gas business that you're in, you're working with a lot of big companies and a lot of oil executives and people with a lot of money, but then you're also working with a lot of people that might be in the oil well out on the oil plots or the oil wells that are actually doing the work and the labor that are working hard to make that transition happen from getting it out of the ground to the oil executives that are running the companies and everybody in between, in the pipeline and the distribution of it. And then you see how much of an effect it has on the economy here, not only locally in your area, but on a statewide level. Does that unique skill set, you think that offers something to other people in the state?
I think it does. And the one thing I think it does for a lot of people, not just in the state of Louisiana, because we're actually taking people from the state of Louisiana and we integrate them in our workforce in other states. And what that does for us is gives us, to me, it's not like we're reinventing or making a new app for the phone, but we're bringing people that know how to work, people that are resilient, people that just there's no such thing as no in their vocabulary. They just know how to push through it, make it happen, and they rally together. And I think a lot of that has to do about our culture and how we were brought up down here, is that to survive and to be stronger, and a relationship was something that brought you further than anything else. So I've always was raised with the notion I'd rather gain relationships than lose them.
What you're alluding to is something that I've talked about in some past shows is work ethic. You're talking about the resilience of people. You're talking about how hard people work. You're talking about the commitment that people make. A lot of times a commitment to a community comes from a good work ethic. And that's what happens a lot in these small towns. It kind of reminded me of that with some of the things that you were saying.
No, William, you went back to my industry, and I call it my industry because I'm so proud of it. Just like where I grew up, it's something that I'll never forget. Traveling all over the country to do business, I've never got off a plane or stepped out of my car and said, you know what, I think I can move my family here. Not that they're bad places. It's just that I'm so deep-rooted in this community and in this district because it's brought me such joy and happiness. And, I truly announced this candidacy for multiple reasons, but the one biggest reason is because I don't want mamas and daddies to have to kiss their goodbyes and put them on planes and say, hey, we'll see you for Christmas, we'll see you for Thanksgiving. I would like to be more the guy that's the salesman for Louisiana.
Yeah, I love it.
You know what I mean? Let's go out into the rest of the country and say, hey, y'all need to come to Louisiana and see what we have going on over here. And that hopefully that'll bring back jobs, that'll bring commerce, that'll bring a boosting revelation to our economy, and let other corporations know that, you know what, I went to Louisiana. I saw that the universities over there have the talent that can bring us forward.
It's interesting you say that. All too often, people make the excuse and say, well, my child had to leave for a better opportunity. My child went here because, Louisiana is not great, or they, and not that they're criticizing Louisiana because they don't like it, but almost like they're making an excuse for their child to have left because Louisiana hasn't lived up to so many commitments that so many elected officials in the past have made to the people, that we're going to save jobs or going to keep your family here. there's a lot to be said about elected officials that make not only a commitment to their district and the state, but also a commitment to those families who work together. When you work together as a family, you not only improve your family, you improve your community, you improve your state, and it's a great cycle to be in. And when that happens, I think not only does our state do better, but our country does better.
No, and look, you right here, like I told you, in Erath, Louisiana. I think what you're saying right there is what I see every day. I see people so committed here that them keeping their roots here, grounded here, it keeps our community flourishing. We're not building skyscrapers here, but we are. We're about to celebrate the one thing that Erath is our biggest claim to fame, is the Erath 4th of July Festival.
And this is the first time I'm hearing about it. The first time I've been here, first time I'm hearing about it, and I'm hearing all these great stories. I'm like, how did I not hear these great stories about Erath? It's the small town community feel. What's the one big thing that's going to go on for 4th of July that you guys like to brag about?
Well, first of all, I think this is such a hardworking community, just like the rest of the district. I think what the 4th of July festives do is gives everybody time, put their leisure clothes on and get out here and visit and say, hey, man, how's your family? How you been? Don't forget, we're here if you need. And also our kids get to enjoy the rides. We have a fireworks display, to me, that I've been to many places, and bar none is very first class, as close to Disney World as you can get,
Well, what about there's some sort of a fireman's contest or something like that?
Yeah, that's one thing we grew up as a kid. We couldn't wait for the water fights, because you got to take your shoes off and take your shirt off and play in the water while the firemen fought. And it was just a way to bring the rest of the fire departments in, get them their training, let people see how hard these men work, let them see that it's not, it's guys that are putting their lives on the line for our communities, and it's something for us to cheer them on to victory. Whether they win, lose, or not, they still get the maybe the 1 minute or 2 minute cheers for the rest of the crowd, and it just shows them that there are people behind them.
I am that guy that still loves small town America, but I'm also that guy that we can look at the big towns and big industries and look at the cities and see how well they flourish, and they're a great place to visit and all. But even a big city, big town has a heart. While Erath may be a smaller town, it's easier to see that heart. It's that heart of America. It's that heart of family. It's that heart of work ethic. It's that sense that I think when you extrapolate that, it's what really makes our communities all over our state, no matter how big they are, succeed. Is that something that you want to try to expound upon in our state?
Yeah, because for me, going to Baton Rouge is just another step in my professional life, not only for the love of my state, but it's for the love of my community, my wife, my kids, and everyone else that works for us in our companies. It's so that I can say I truly fought and look them in the eye and say, we this much closer to that little Jimmy and little Jill don't have to get on a plane to go find a career. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be easy. And the greatest things in life, I think, is very true when you say don't come easy. The less road travel is the harder road, right?
That's right.
But I think that there's a lot of great people in this state that are willing to roll up their sleeves and work hand in hand to fight for the same thing. And I just want to be.
Are you one of those?
Yeah, 100%. I want to be the guy that bridges the gap between truly understanding the oil and gas industry and the legislation. I don't think the oil and gas is gonna set Louisiana on fire and this robust economy. That's not what the point I'm making is. The point I'm making is I think that we can't turn a blind eye to an industry that employs so many people in this state and gives us a sense of gratitude and we're so proud of oil and gas industry. The oil and gas industry, even though it's in the Gulf of Mexico, with Go Mesa, if we can get certain things done in Washington, and I'm not going to Washington, but I can push on people to get this done. But Go Mesa can bring so much more money into the state of Louisiana, where we can actually push it into the regions to protect Louisiana.
So let's talk about some of the things that you're going to do in the state legislature when you get there to help keep these commitments, to not only our communities, but to industry, but to other industries that need help or that need to have a light shined on them, so that way we can improve all the areas of Louisiana. Let's talk about some of that. Do you have a hot topic that you want to talk about first before I ask some questions on what you think is the most important?
The hot topic for me is making sure, in everyday business world and life, we have to have plans, right? In our personal lives, we have to have a plan to know how we're going to keep food in the house, a roof over our kids' heads, over our heads, pay our insurance, and all those things. And in a business life, we got to have a business plan, right? And I think as a state, we need to come together as legislators and find the ultimate goal that we want for this state, And I think that there's several different goals that legislators and the state has, but we need to start recognizing what's the one thing that can boost us and push us back into positive, right? We don't want to still be 48th and 47th and we want to be number one, right? But I think we are number one in many ways. We're number one in culture, work ethics, and people, right?
Resources. Louisiana has unlimited. We have more resources than we realize.
100%, William. So in the state of Louisiana, going to Baton Rouge is going to be, I don't want to just go up there and just start passing all these laws and things. I want to make sure the laws we already have are right, and make sure if we got to change them to push us forward. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I want to make sure that everyone that's working hand in hand, I may not have all the answers. So for me, advisors are key to the success of not only my life, but my work career, and now my legislative career, hopefully. I want to make sure that the rest of the state, we bring in everyone and work hand in hand that can bring and solve issues that we have in front of us, like our budget, like healthcare, like education. I'm a firm believer in education and early childhood education, right? And that'll bring a workforce that we won't have to worry about where we find employees.
Two things have come to my mind since you've been talking here. One is, and I'm going to ask this question again for the mama bears, or a couple of different questions for the mama bears. But, there's the mama bears, there's a lot of the parents, there's the homeschooling moms. They really are concerned with a lot of the things that's going on in our education system, as are other people that aren't a member of that. But that's a group, and there's other groups like them that really have a lot of good answers and solutions. How will you involve, if not the mama bears, but other organizations, other groups, to be able to help improve childhood education?
We had a joke. We joked about it this morning. We walked into the conference room at the office this morning, and I said, "Dang!" I said, "Am I late?" And they go, "No, we were in a meeting to plan a meeting." So we joke about in our industry that we always have meetings to plan meetings, but I don't think that's far-fetched in fixing our state. I truly think the more meetings and the more people we can meet and the more people we can get in front of, just like this candidacy. When I announced right here where we're sitting, William, on July 3rd. For multiple reasons. A is because the 4th of July was the happiest moment in a lot of kids and a lot of people's lives down here, because in the downturns of the oil industry and the weakness in the farming communities and the economy, the 4th of July was a happy time. So that's the one thing in this community's life, is the 4th of July is a happy time. So me announcing it on the 4th of July, that was one thing, to rally everyone and let them know that, hey, I want to take what we've built and the hard work and all the people around here and bring that into Baton Rouge and help solve problems, fix these issues. But back to the mama bears, when it comes to education and that, I think having a strong footprint, I don't think we're not putting the money where it needs to be. I think we need to bring the right people in and say, how can we do this? How can we just change, tweak here, tweak there, and have a system that truly allows a kid to know what they want to do before we just dump them into the world. And I think by making sure that a kid says, I want to go to college. I want to see what it's about. Well, I think we're starting to do those right things and putting them in college-bound courses. But I think where we're letting a lot of kids down is when it comes to the courses where we're putting them into the vocational side. You know, a lot of people from this community in this district can leave school, and with their hard work and their families, how the families raised them, they can get some pretty good jobs down here
without even going to college.
Correct, 100%. And I think letting them know that opportunity exists out there and introducing them to that before they even out of school, I think gives them that foundation to truly become successful young adults and build great families.
So you probably, it sounds to me like you're going to work with a lot of the, of course, parents, but of course those mama bears that are involved and other parents in helping improve and what they think the education should be, how it can be improved in Louisiana is something that you'll do a lot of.
You know, the one thing I hear a lot of is please don't forget us after you win. And that's one thing that I take very serious, because the success where we at in this race is because I put so much time towards my family, so much time towards my business, and so much time towards my candidacy. But what I mean by when I'm in the district and I'm shaking hands and meeting people, eating Sunday lunch with people, right? I got to be careful how much my shape's changing with this candidacy. But I'm learning that the more, even though after I'm elected, the more I'm in that district, the more success I'm going to have in doing what I need to do, not only for my state, but for the people in my district. And I think that's the one thing is I want to be approachable, but I know as a father, a husband, a businessman, I have to be able to go into somebody else's household or knock on that door and say, hey, how's your family? Tell me what I need to do as your legislator to make your life better if I can.
Absolutely love this. So I'm going to go back a few minutes before that. You were referring to the legislature and how things are working and make things working better. You know, there's a lot of people that think that this last legislative session did not end well. You know, and while I know you weren't there, so maybe not being there, you don't know some of the things that might have gone on, you know, in the committee rooms or whatever, nor do I, nor do 99% of the people in Louisiana don't know. However, you know, people don't like how it ended. They don't like how the session ended with this budget fiasco and everything like that. If you were in the legislature, what would you have done?
You know, for me, as being in the legislature and seeing what just took place, for me, it would be, I'm a guy that I like to communicate. I like to know, for me to prepare and to truly make a decision that's not just off the cuff. I like to be able to know what's going on. I like to feel the pulse. And you asking me that alludes to what one of my plans are after being elected, is I want to start meeting the legislators, which I'm doing now, right? The guys that aren't up for re-election, but even the guys that have the same conservative values as I have, the ones that I get to sit with whenever, and our wives get to talk, and we get to visit, and we get to converse. But that's what I want to do, is I want to prepare. I want us to be prepared, because there's nothing more that I used to fear as a young man in this industry is being sent to a job or into an office and I wasn't prepared, because it didn't give me that successful recipe to concoct a great meal, you know. And
a lot of those guys voted on something, not because they wanted to or didn't want to, but because they had to. That budget came down to being put in there within the last hour, and so that created such a fiasco in the end of session. You know, is there anything that you'd have done differently?
Well, like I said, I wasn't there. I've heard different stories. I've visited with a lot of leaders in the legislature that I respect, and I think what I'm hearing the most of is passing legislation where that can't happen again, to where our budget needs to be up front and where everybody knows the ins and the outs. And I know things come in last minute.
Now, let me see if I can understand this right. So you're saying ahead of time, you know, it's what you kind of alluded to. So you might have passed legislation that would have made them talk about the budget in the beginning of session
Instead of
the end.
And I know
That's
things
interesting. I didn't think about that.
And the things I know that things change. And like I said, I didn't spend as much time as I want to spend at the Capitol because I spent a lot of time in my district, feeling the people, seeing what's still on their minds, where they're at, and one thing that keeps coming back is economy, and the one thing too is I think a lot of constituents just want, whether you vote in yes or no, they just want to know why, right? And I think if we have the conversation, you'll be on with respect to what your constituents. But the thing about legislation that I'm learning, it's a lot. It's over 95 people, in the House, and you have a lot of moving parts. And there's one thing I know through business, sometimes 300-400 employees, it's a lot of moving parts. And COVID taught me.
I'm glad you're bringing up this because a lot of elected officials, they'll run this. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And then they get in there and they realize they have to work with a lot of other people, a lot of other organizations, and they realize it's not as easy to move, that machine as much as they thought. Now, you can certainly make a big difference, but I'm still liking this idea that you're alluded to, that instead of that budget getting to that last minute when people have to vote on it before they know what's in it, or they have to, essentially vote on it to see what's in it, they have to pass it to see what's in it.
Or it's like the warning track in the game of baseball, knowing before you hit the fence that you're right there.
Right, exactly.
So giving us a little time.
I like your idea is making sure to say, hey, look, can we pass legislation that makes that budget always the first priority? And maybe it was. Maybe there's some we don't know.
Yeah, like I said, I wasn't there the whole time.
Maybe there's an instrument that could be done in the legislative process that says the budget always has to be the first thing done or the first thing voted on in that session.
And you're right, William. And like I said, feeling the rest of the legislators out. There's a lot of guys that have that idea. It's not something that Jacob Landry's bringing to Baton Rouge, but it's one of the things that I'm gonna be 100% into sitting down and having the conversation on how do we do that. You can't fix anything until you ask the question and answer it. We might have all different answers, but at the end of the day, if we could all walk out the same door with the same way to get to that answer, I think that would be the success of the legislator.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm giving you my opinion, my interpretation of what I'm hearing, but mostly because I want the people of Louisiana in this district to also know it and hear it. It sounds to me like you've already said you got things you want to do, but you're going in open-minded in the way that you're going to listen to people and get other ideas that might be better than your own, that you're going to work with people to be able to make sure the best thing gets done. You've kind of shown people your heart. You've kind of shown people some of your ideas to get a gauge on who you are, on which way you might go, so to speak, but that you want to listen and work with other people, but also open-minded enough to know that you can't always change completely, but you can make a huge difference, and that's what you want to do.
Right, and the infamous words of my mother, Jacob, you can't always get what you want, but you can work towards what you really want. And
yeah, that's a good one. I like that. Thanks, Mom.
And I think as a legislator, my responsibility to my district and my state is to make sure that I can spend as much time with other legislators so I know what their district wants, what other districts wants, and what other parts of the state wants, right? Just like you used to talk about letting others play with your toys in the sandbox, right?
Right.
I think it would be more gentlemanly of me if I know that I'm going over there with what I want and my agenda, and a lot of us have the same agenda. We just might not all have the same road that we're going to travel to get there, but I think if we all spend the time and recognize what's the priorities to push our state forward, I think it brings success back to all our districts.
I like that with the priorities and goal. It's kind of like creating a goal. It's like you're going there with priorities. It's, to me, the same thing as a goal sheet. If you have goals, you go in, you work hard towards a goal. But if you go in without a goal or without priorities, then you just kind of become part of an old system that's never worked. Goals kind of change things in your life personally. Would that also change things in this legislature?
Yeah, goals. I truly believe, and it's one thing I teach my kids, and I do personally every day, is set goals. If you don't set goals, how are you ever going to achieve them, right? You might not get to them, so you got to be realistic about your goals. And in the legislation, we need to be realistic about our goals. And look, we can go over there, and there is a large elephant over there, but we could take it bite by bite. We don't have to consume it all at once. So I think setting those goals is to put priorities in place on what'll keep moving the needle to push our state up and up and up and up in those numbers. If you want to compare us in the next to all the 50 states, right? If we want to become in the top tier, number one, it's going to be prioritizing and achieving those priorities and those goals. Now
you talked about going over there and it's an elephant in the room, as you put it. But understand, there's also some donkeys in the room too. And now I don't mean that in a negative connotation kind of way. There's Republicans and there's Democrats over there. How will you work with Democrats? Now let me say by saying this. Everybody says, we're going to get a Republican governor, we're going to win to get a Republican House, and we're going to have a Republican Senate. But we have that now, Republican Senate and the legislature, or House rather. We hope to get a Republican governor, but let's just face reality. We can't exclude Democrats. We can't exclude people who might not think like us. We can't exclude, people who might vote differently. How will you work with people that are maybe Democrats or maybe think a little bit differently? How will you work with them to bring people together?
It's recognizing what our common goals are. They're going to disagree with some of the things that I have, my values, and some of the things that I want to push forth, and I'll probably disagree with them. But I think if we all get together and have a conversation, I know that it'll be different than my Democratic legislators, but I know we all have common goals. And the one common goal is that we all want a better Louisiana. So we need to put some of our differences aside and recognize what's best for Louisiana. I know we have to bring back to our districts, and I think, once again, a Build Back Better Louisiana is great for all our districts. And I think us recognizing that, whether we have a D or an R or an I or whatever behind our names in the legislators, I truly believe that's the way to bridge us together to bring Louisiana in the upper 5 states,
Now, while I'd like to end our conversation on that note because that's such a positive, high note, I have a couple more questions while we wrap up here.
I'm good, man. William, I always enjoy our conversations,
Same here.
Because it's those conversations like we have that keeps the topics at hand and lets us know we have to be fiscally responsible. We also have to be compassionate for our state.
I love it. There were some health issues in our state, like when COVID came up. There was a knee-jerk reaction. There was a lot of people that maybe overreacted, and I won't call out any elected officials that may have overreacted, as some people thought. But in a scenario like that again, if that were to happen again, how would you have balanced business closures and the knee-jerk reaction with the economy, the state, and the people? And my biggest issue is freedom. There was a big intrusion on freedom and liberty. How would you have balanced that?
As a father and a husband, as a businessman, I'll go back to COVID then and now, right? I picked up the phone and I started making phone calls. My friends that are in the medical field, my friends that are in the legislature, John Kennedy, I called him on a Saturday, me and a partner of mine in business. That guy, we left a message, and 30 minutes later he called back. And as a businessman with 300, sometimes 300 employees between 3 or 4 companies, that was in the back of my mind, because here we are. We didn't know what was going to happen. We flying offshore and we in close quarters. We working in West Texas in man camps. We doing all these things, and what's the one thing they're talking about COVID? It was the spread of it, right? But not only business-wise, family-wise, and health-wise, I used advisors. I used guys that I put in the upper tier of truly, they're going to give me the facts. Whether it's good or bad, they're going to let me know, Jacob, no, you got, and the one thing I've learned is not everything's black and white. Everything has a little bit of gray. And what I mean by that is I chose the way I lived through COVID because of the advisors I had. I didn't push that on anybody else. But if that ever came again, keeping our state open, keeping our businesses open, letting people live their lives like they want to live.
Make their own decisions.
That's right. Their freedom. You know, that's what we're about to celebrate. The coming on in the next 5 days is our freedom.
So freedom for you is a priority.
100%, William.
I love it. You know, I believe that in America, freedom is under attack. And I often ask a lot of my national interviews, you know, where is freedom under attack in America? And while it's under attack in America, it's also under attack in our own state. You know, where do you think that freedom is most under attack in our state or our country?
You know, I think the biggest thing for our freedom is I don't think government should tell us how to live our lives. You know, I think there's so many great people that fight for their country, that get up every morning and go and they make sure people have the opportunity to come in for wellness. Guys wake up, even though you've had the worst day in business, but you still got to wake up in the morning because your employees got to know that they have somebody leading them forward. And I think the attack on our country is that we forget how we got where we were. And I think the rearview mirror in our cars is for multiple reasons, right? But I think us remembering how we got where we got, not only in our nation, but as individuals, as families, as business owners, as businesses, we got to remember that there was a road we traveled. And the good and the bad is something that helped us get where we got. And as someone that's so proud of where I live, how I was raised, and bringing our culture into other areas makes me more. I love going to other states because people love the culture and everything that we have in Louisiana. So back to you.
Find yourself promoting
Well, yeah,
Louisiana.
because that's what I told you, William. I want to be the salesman for Louisiana. You know, I have if somebody comes to me, can we build microchips in Louisiana? Why not? We have some of the most talented people over here.
Absolutely.
And we losing them to other states. So why couldn't we go and tell somebody, why don't you invest in our state? We'll give you the most talented people, and we'll give your business the biggest jolt you ever had. But why don't you come see what Louisiana has to offer?
I love it. Now, I interrupted you. You're going to say back to something you were getting ready to say?
Oh, but yeah, back to our attack is, I just think that sometimes growing up like I did, my parents could have overshadowed me, right? They could have said, I don't want Jacob to make those mistakes. I want Jacob to not experience the bad. But I think what my family gave to me was experiencing everything, but giving me the guidance. And I think that our government overstepping their bounds is actually telling us as citizens, where we got, how did we get? Because of the government? I really don't think that's how we got where we got, right, William?
Yeah, that's right. Smaller government's is a better community.
100%.
My last question for you. I have a business card. I always pass it out. You know it well. Most people do.
I love it. It's one of my favorite things.
my little coin there, you know. And
Marketing 101.
Yeah, Marketing 101. And on the back of it, I've got my priorities in life: God, family, country, freedom. And that's my priorities. What would you say about that?
My priorities, it's pretty spot on your priorities, and I'm not going to steal all your priorities.
I knew you'd have something good to say about it.
No, but my priorities is being one with God is something that gives me being one with my wife, having a successful relationship with my wife and my kids, and us all being together one is knowing that we are one with God and celebrating week to week in prayer with God. But also my priorities as this candidacy is oil and gas, making sure we have a coast that protects the rest of Louisiana and allows us to be able to see proper economic growth. I think that's tied into economic growth and down here with the coast so close to us. Mm-hmm. And education, just making sure that like I said, I want to make sure we have the recipe for me to bring to the rest of the country and say and serve them up the greatest dish they ever had, that they just want Louisiana more and more every day.
So you could be the best salesman in the world, but you also want to have a good product to sell, is what you're saying.
100%.
I love it. Well, any
Yeah.
final words for our audience?
Well, William, no, I appreciate the time. I hope everybody watching this gets to know who Jacob Landry really is. And if you want to get to know more, go to Jacob Landry for Louisiana. You'll see you can get me, whether it's by phone or by social media or by email. And I'm looking for a successful 2023 election win and hit the ground even harder after this election.
I love it. Jacob Landry, thank you so much.
Thank
I
you,
really
William.
appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for watching the interview or listening to it on a podcast. You can find me at William Wallace for America, but I think that all of you would be well served if you looked into Jacob Landry a little bit more and find out about him, because I'm always looking for good candidates and good people to help improve not only our state, but our country. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a great day.
Happy 4th.
Happy 4th of July.